In this short episode, we will continue with what happened after Frodo got wounded on Weathertop. We will mainly look into what a Morgul-knife is and what it means that Aragorn has some healing skills. But before we start, as always, I try to pronounce names as Tolkien described it, spoiler warning, and shoutouts to Kimberly, Ati and Niati for allowing me to use the amazing artworks. Feel free to check their DeviantArt channels. Even though so many good things and good fortune were on the side of Frodo and his friends, he still got stabbed by a Morgul-knife. It's easy to say, knowing the story, that he got lucky. The Witch King missed his heart by a few centimeters due to all that happened, and maybe the high powers in the world helped, and the plans of the Nazgul were foiled, but the situation was dire for Frodo. Rivendell was still around 12 days away under best conditions, and the enemy was still around and had horses. It was looking pretty grim for Frodo. As mentioned before, the Weathertop section is very different in the books, and this trend continues, but the films still try to reference a lot of little details and keep the core essence of the story intact. The way from Weathertop to Rivendell is quite short in the films, which makes totally sense for the medium. Frodo's wound is dramatic, haste is needed, and so a pacing is needed that dictates more speed. In the book, the path to Rivendell is a whole chapter called Flight to the Ford, and some parts of the escape are also explained retrospectively in many meetings the chapter after it. As explained last episode, after Frodo got stabbed, Aragorn appears and fights off the Nazgul. Sam runs to Frodo and the Ringwraiths ignore him completely and focus on Strider. It's a bit like in the book where the Nazgul also ignore them and then retreat. The Hobbits bend over Frodo and are worried about their friend, which is also similar in the book. However, there they in addition fueled the fire with more wood to keep Frodo warm, as ordered by Strider. After the Nazgul are gone in the film, Aragorn comes to the wounded Frodo too. He finds the Morgul-knife beside him, on which he comments, and the blade disappears or dissolves into smoke, which is also described in the book. However, there it was mentioned that the blade's point was broken off, which is still in Frodo's wound. In the movie, it was filmed in a way that the point stayed out of sight most of the time, but it seems the blade is still intact. It's hard to see. So what is a Morgul-knife? Morgul is Sindarin and means something like black sorcery. We find it of course in the name Minas Morgul, the Tower of Black Sorcery, the city of the Witch King and where the Ringwraiths dwelt, which was once a major city of Gondor called Minas Ithil. Maybe the blades were made in Minas Morgul, or they were called this way because of the black magic in them. Not sure if there's a statement about that. All I could find was that it was called Knife of the Necromancer in early drafts. As the name implies, there lies some kind of magic on them, when a bit later Aragorn showed the hilt of the Morgul-knife, which he kept, to an elvish character that was really powerful named Glorfindel. We will talk about him in a future episode. The elf lord commented that there are evil things written on it, which only he could see. In the film, if we look closely, it could be that there are writings on the blade instead of on the hilt, but I'm not sure either. As an elf who saw the two trees of Valinor once, same with Galadriel, Glorfindel could see the unseen part of the world with his eyes. We talked about this concept in a past episode, and I go more into detail in my video about the nature of magic in Tolkien's world and the video about necromancy, so it seems there were words with authority written in the unseen on the Morgul-knife that gave them this property. From my perspective, and this is just me speculating, the attack of this blade must weaken or bring the body of its victim to a near-death state for a moment and then transform it into a wraith, so that the victim does not die and its spirit does not get summoned to the halls of Mandos or directly by Eru, because Nazgul or even Sauron are not powerful enough to prevent this. So this transformation where the victim is moved to the unseen must happen before they die. just for completeness sake. If the spirits of men go to Mandor's halls after they die is not 100% clear. The elves assume that this is the case, and Tolkien made a comment about that, so I see it as likely, but he also says nobody truly knows. Still, the Morgul-knife is a terrible weapon that leads to a horrible fate. It could also be designed in a way that it breaks a bit and leaves a fragment in the wound of its victim. This fragment would then, like in Frodo's case, work inside the body. Quote, "Then Elrond removed a splinter. It was deeply buried and it was working inwards." However, back to the story, Aragorn further comments that this wound was beyond his skill, which we also find in the book, just phrased a bit differently. Interestingly, here lies a reference. This passage implies that Aragorn has healing skills. As we know, he will become the next king, and there is a prophecy we find much later in Return of the King in the chapter House of Healing. "Thus spake Eores, wise woman of Gondor, the hands of the king are the hands of a healer, and so shall the rightful king be known." Tolkien tried to connect this deeper into the lore over the elf stone called Elessar, which is a powerful gemstone of the elves that has healing powers. And so there's also a prophecy of Gandalf in the Unfinished Tales he gave to Galadriel once. We come to this when we meet Galadriel in several episodes. But there is more. Shoutouts to Rosary Crusader, who wrote me a very informative comment on this topic. The healing skill of the king is also something we find in the real world. As you might remember, Bill Ferny in Bree called Strider Longshanks, which I said could be a reference to King Edward I, even though Aragorn's life seems to resemble the Anglo-Saxon king Edward the Confessor more. Both kings are also somewhat connected. Henry III chose the name Edward for his son because he was devoted to the veneration of Edward the Confessor. However, for the old kings of Europe, it was often said that they had healing abilities too. There was the so-called royal touch in England and France, where the king touched sick people to potentially cure them, independent of social class and status. Edward the Confessor was probably one of the first who did this and started this tradition. It was later discontinued though. Tolkien knew this all too well, so I see it as likely that he took inspiration from this. And so Aragorn has the healing hands and is later recognized as true king of Gondor because he will heal the people in the House of Healing. It is always amazing how you can learn something from the smallest details in Tolkien's works. We will revisit this later in the series too. Another small detail, we see Sam shedding some tears in the film, which is in the book too, but here this happens when Strider talks to him in private, while Merry and Pippin bathed Frodo's wound with boiled water and tried to keep his body warm. In the film, he just took Frodo and carried him away, and they seem to walk through a forest where Aragorn and Sam then searched for a plant called Athelas in Sindarin, also known as Kingsfoil. The translation is not clear, but it could translate to something like healing leaf. It is a plant that was originally brought to Middle-earth by the Numenoreans, Aragorn's ancestors, and possesses great healing power. In the book, Strider orders Sam to protect Frodo and to help Merry and Pippin while he goes away alone. The night passed and he came back at dawn. It is also here where Strider finds the knife and makes the comment about the wound being beyond his skill to heal, but also drew Athelas from his pouch, which he got while he was gone. So in the book there is a delay before they leave Weathertop and go into more wooded regions. We also find two interesting little details here. First, Strider finds a black cloak with a slash in it and concludes that Frodo might have hit the Witch King, but also comments that all blades perish when they touch that dreadful king. Second, he did something with the hilt of the Morgul-knife too. Quote, "He sat down on the ground and taking the dagger hilt laid it on his knees and he sang over it a slow song in a strange tongue. Then setting it aside he turned to Frodo and in a soft tone spoke words the others could not catch. From the pouch at his belt he drew out the long leaves of a plant." It's quite remarkable that he sings over the hilt and speaks to Frodo, because in ancient lore, including the story of Beren and Luthien, two of Aragorn's ancestors, we spoke about them in a past episode about Strider's song, we find multiple descriptions of powerful elves or even Maiar like Sauron using songs of power. In Tolkien's world, words and song can have power that is magical. Of course, the person using them must have some authority, I assume. When Frodo cried for Elbereth, this had an effect on the Witch King, and Frodo was just a mortal hobbit. This again shows Strider's great knowledge, and as potential king, he also had some authority. A king of the Dún Edain could call for Eru for oaths. Isildur cursed the oath-breakers this way, and Eru accepted his words, so this makes sense. We have words on the hills and also words calling for Elbereth to counter the dark powers. There is still much more detail to discuss here, but that will be next episode. Thank you for watching. This episode was a bit rushed and quite short, but I hope you still enjoyed it. A reason for this is that I'm working on a bigger video in the background and I wanted to still publish one little lore video before I will focus on the other video for around the next 2 weeks. If you liked this video, feel free to press the like button, leave a comment and maybe recommend me further. In case you want to subscribe, consider pressing the annoying bell. Next video will be gaming related again. I will also stream on Twitch here and there. Maybe tune in if you're interested. We just completed Final Fantasy VII and I'm waiting for the remake. Beyond that, you can maybe check my Discord server or follow me on Twitter, all the social media things. Again, thank you for watching, stay healthy in these difficult times and goodbye.